The Meditations of Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. Book 4, continued. Delight yourself in the little art you have learned and acquiesce in it, and spend the remainder of your life as one who with all his heart commits all his concerns to the gods, and neither acts the tyrant or the slave toward any of mankind. Recollect, for example, the times of Vespasian. You will see all the same things you see now. Men marrying, bringing up children, sickening, dying, fighting, feasting, trading, farming, flattering, obstinate in their own will, suspicious, undermining their neighbors, wishing the death of others, repining at their present circumstances, courting mistresses, hoarding up, pursuing consulships and kingdoms. This life of theirs is past and is no more. Come down to Trajan's days. You'll see the same things again. That life too is past. Consider other periods of time in other nations and see how many, after their keen pursuits of such kinds, presently fell and were dissolved into their elements. But chiefly represent to your mind those whom you yourself knew vainly distracted with such pursuits, and quitting that course which suited the structure of their nature, not adhering to it, nor contented with it. But you must also remember that in each action there is a care suited and proportioned to the importance of the affair. And thus you'll not be disgusted that you are not allowed to be employed longer than is proper about matters of less value. Words formerly the most familiar are now grown obscure, and in like manner the names of such as were once much celebrated are now become obscure and need explication, such as Camillus, Caeso, Volusus, Leonatus, soon after them Scipio, Cato, and then Augustus, after him Hadrian and Antoninus. All things hasten to an end, shall speedily seem old fables, and then be buried in oblivion. This I say of those who have shone in high admiration. The rest of men, as soon as they expire, are unknown and forgotten. And then what is this eternal memory? 'Tis wholly vain and empty. About what then should we employ our diligence and solicitude? This alone, that our souls be just, our actions social, our speech entirely sincere, and our disposition such as may cheerfully embrace whatever happens, as being necessary, as well known, and as flowing from such springs and causes. Resign yourself willingly to your destiny, allowing it to involve you in what matters it pleases. All things are transitory, and as it were but for a day, both those who remember and the things and persons remembered. Observe continually that all things exist in consequence of changes. Inure yourself to consider that the nature of the universe delights in nothing more than in changing the things now existing, and in producing others like them. The things now existing are a sort of seed to those which shall arise out of them. You may conceive that there are no other seeds than those that are cast into the earth or the womb, but such a mistake shows great ignorance. You must die presently, and yet you have not attained to the true simplicity and tranquility, nor to that freedom from all suspicion of hurt by external things, nor have you that kind of affection toward all, nor do you place your true wisdom solely in a constant practice of justice. Look well into their governing part, and their cares, what things they study to avoid, and what they pursue. Thy evil cannot have its subsistence in the soul of another, nor in any change or alteration of the body which surrounds thee. Where then? In that part of thee which forms opinions concerning evils. Let this part form no such opinions, and all is well. Though this poor body, which is nearest to thee, be cut, or burned, or suppurated, or mortify, let the opinionative power be quiet. That is, let it judge that what may equally befall a good man or a bad, can be neither good or evil. For what equally befalls one who lives according to nature, and one who lives against it, can neither be according to nature nor against it. Consider always this universe as one living being or animal, with one material substance and one spirit, and how all things are referred to the sense of this spirit, and how its will accomplishes all things, and how the whole concurs to the production of everything, and what a connection and contexture there is among all things. Thou art a poor spirit, carrying a dead carcass about with thee, says Epictetus. There is no evil befalls the things which suffer a change, nor any good in arising into being from a change. Time is a river, or violent torrent of things coming into being. Each one, as soon as it has appeared, is swept off and disappears, and is succeeded by another which is swept away in its turn. Whatever happens is as natural and customary and known as a rose in the spring or fruit in summer. Such are diseases, deaths, calumnies, treacheries, and all which gives fools either joy or sorrow. Things subsequent are naturally connected with those which preceded. They are not as numbers of things independent of each other, yet necessarily succeeding, but they are in a regular connection. And as things now existing are joined together in the most apposite contexture, so those which ensue have not barely a necessary succession, but a wonderful suitableness and affinity to what preceded. Remember always the doctrine of Heraclitus, that the death of the earth is its becoming water, that of water its becoming air, that of air its becoming fire, and so back again. Think of him who forgot whither the road led him, and that men are frequently at variance with that reason or intelligence with which they have always to do and which governs the universe, and are surprised at those things as strange which they meet with every day. That we ought not to speak or act like men asleep, for even in sleep we seem to speak and act, nor like children, merely because we have been so instructed by our parents. If any god would assure you, you must die either tomorrow or the next day at farthest, you would little matter whether it were tomorrow or the day after, unless you were exceedingly mean-spirited. For how trifling is the difference! Just so you should repute it of small consequence whether you ought to die in extreme old age or tomorrow. Consider frequently how many physicians who had often knit their brows on discovering the prognostics of death in their patients have at last yielded to death themselves, and how many astrologers, after foretelling the deaths of others, with great ostentation of their art, and how many philosophers, after they had made many long dissertations upon death and immortality, how many warriors, after they had slaughtered multitudes, how many tyrants, after they had exercised their power of life and death with horrid pride, as if they had been immortal, nay, how many whole cities, if I may so speak, are dead. Hellas, Pompeii, Herculanum, and others innumerable. Then run over those whom, in a series, you have known, one taking care of the funeral of another, and then buried by a third, and all this in a short time. And in general, all human affairs are mean and but for a day. What yesterday was a trifling embryo, tomorrow shall be an embalmed carcass or ashes. Pass this short moment of time according to nature, and depart contentedly, as the full ripe olive falls of its own accord, applauding the earth whence it sprung, and thankful to the tree that bore it. Stand firm like a promontory upon which the waves are always breaking. It not only keeps its place, but stills the fury of the waves. Wretched am I, says one, that this has befallen me. Nay, say you, happy I, who, though this has befallen me, can still remain without sorrow, neither broken by the present, nor dreading the future. The like might have befallen anyone, but everyone could not have remained thus undejected. Why should the event be called a misfortune, rather than this strength of mind a felicity? But can you call that a misfortune to a man which does not frustrate the intention of his nature? Can that frustrate the intention of it, or hinder it to attain its end, which is not contrary to the will or purpose of his nature? What is this will or purpose? Sure you have learned it. Doth this event hinder you to be just, magnanimous, temperate, prudent, cautious of rash assent, free from error, possessed of a sense of honour and modesty, and of true liberty, or from meriting those other characters, which whoever enjoys hath all his nature requires, as its proper perfection? And then upon every occasion of sorrow remember the maxim that this event is not a misfortune, but the bearing it, courageously, is a great felicity. 'Tis a vulgar meditation, and yet a very effectual one for enabling us to despise death, to consider the fate of those who have been most earnestly tenacious of life and enjoyed it longest. What have they obtained more than those who died early? They are all lying dead somewhere or other. Cadicianus, Fabius, Julian, Lepidus, and such like, who carried out the corpses of multitudes, have been carried out themselves. In sum, how small is the difference of time, and that spent amidst how many troubles, among what worthless men, and in what a mean carcass. Don't think it of consequence. Look backward on the immense antecedent eternity, and look forward into another immensity. How small is the difference between a life of 3 days and of 3 ages like Nestor's. Haste on in the shortest way. The shortest way is that according to nature. Ever speak and act what is most sound and upright. This resolution will free you from much toil, and warring, and artful management, and dissimulation, and ostentation. End of Book 4 of the Meditations of Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus.